This video is inspired by Endo. Go check his video as well. Nintendo has been well known for delivering their signature Nintendo magic. They put entire worlds in our pockets with systems like the Game Boy family, the DS, and the 3DS family of handheld consoles, and recently with the Switch. But today, with the Switch 2, something just feels bizarrely off. The launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 was supposed to be like another leap forward into the future of Nintendo, but instead it feels more like a leap forward into the uncanny valley. But first, hi, my name is Totter, and I do videos mainly covering Nintendo stuff. If you enjoy that kind of content, subscribe to the channel. And now, have the Switch 2's vibes kind of felt odd for some of y'all as well? There could be a lot of reasons behind this. Nintendo's price policy, how we're starting to lose the physical aspect of owning games, us just, not being as young as we used to, the world economy continuing to worsen, the lackluster games of 2025. There are a lot of culprits that can contribute to this odd feeling of the Switch 2. A giant factor to this could be the nostalgia to a more simpler time, to a time of our lives when we had more free time. As we get older, we have less and less free time. We remember fondly the good times we had with the original Switch or our first Nintendo console. When the original Switch console came out, life was just different, at least for me. I had more time, fewer responsibilities, and just more mental space. I played Breath of the Wild, for instance, all night long without having to think that I have work in the morning, that I have bills to pay, that I have to go and buy overpriced groceries, or just being straight up scared that the world could just end any moment now, or a massive war can just break out. The Switch was not only a console, it was more like a companion. I love actually playing handheld.
My favorite way to experience the Switch was late at night, me just exploring a world, be it Breath of the Wild's Hyrule, Tears of the Kingdom's Hyrule, be it Hisui, Baldea. I just loved exploring. I also loved playing multiplayer with my friends online. We usually played Smash Bros or Mario Kart. These memories stick with me and they become even warmer as years go by.
Especially when I think about some younger friends that I had that have grown alongside me, how they have turned into adults now themselves. When you're younger, 2 to 4 years seems like a large age gap for friends. The older we get, the more time just shrinks. Our energy reserves just deplete constantly. Even when we have time to play, we just kinda don't wanna. We have to force ourselves to enjoy something we did before with absolutely no restraint. This is especially apparent to me with the Switch 2. Some people were already adults when the first Switch launched and still don't vibe with the Switch 2 the same way that they did with the Switch 1. But they had different lives and different relationships with the games they played. That's important to say because this isn't about age alone, it's about context. And the broader context now is that everything is rough. Prices are continuing to skyrocket for all basic necessities. Money feels ever more tighter. The world's leaders are a joke. The general vibe is that everything feels unstable, that you cannot just turn off. And so when you spend more money on something, you subconsciously want more from it. You demand more from it. You yourself want to feel like the purchase was justified. Take me for example. I forced my way through Metroid Prime 4. Did I enjoy the game? I don't know. Probably not. It was a fine enough game, but it was not Metroid. But I forced myself through it just because I wanted the justification of buying a super overpriced game. Nintendo on paper did everything right with the Switch 2. They added all the features that we wanted. We always wanted and just anticipated a new Switch, right? Why innovate on something that already works fine now as it is? And why just not hype ourselves up for a console that isn't even released or announced yet? Right? Why just not hype ourselves up? Hype. Hype is what ruined this system. Hype can be a dangerous thing. For years, people built their own perfect version of the Switch 2 in their heads. Every leak, rumor, every fan render added another layer. Better graphics, smaller size, bigger size, flawless performance, lower prices, full backward compatibility until the 3DS, everything. By the time the device actually came out, which, happy coming out, it was competing with a fantasy that could never exist. You know, as a kid, I always wanted to work in dubbing. It was a dream of mine, I obsessed over it. I wanted to do everything that had to do with dubbing. Voice acting, just that sort of thing. It was, in a way, my ADHD hyperfixation. I idolized this industry and I hyped it up for myself that it was just the coolest thing ever. The people that worked there were working with animated stuff, with animated content, animation. They surely loved cartoons and video games, right? And they surely were like me, right? They surely all were like I envisioned them in my head, right? The people there. I followed this dream for the longest time. I started to make a little makeshift fan group of fan dubbers even. We dubbed Cartoon Network stuff, Disney stuff, we mainly did Steven Universe in our native language. It was so fun, but I wanted more. I wanted to pursue this professionally. I wanted to work in the industry. So first, I started going to singing lessons. If I eventually became a voice actor, I wanted to sing my own songs. Then, of course, I decided to go to acting classes because you can't have voice acting without the acting. You just have to perform. Even if it's just, you know, your voice. And lastly, I went to film school to become a sound engineer. Because if voice acting didn't work out, I could always just go from the back door into the industry and do stuff with dubbing, with sound engineering. You know, just edit out and render the complete product. Everything in my life pointed in that direction. And you know what? At the 4th year of film school, when we had to do our mandatory internships, my dream became a reality. The thing that I hoped for so long came to fruition. Yet, I felt empty. I got to this point that I always dreamed of, but it brought me nothing. I started to see all the flaws. The idolized view of the industry I had, well, it just came crumbling down, crumbling down, crumbling down. Until I only saw the negatives. And I couldn't see a single positive thing. The thing that I had built up as my future, it just suddenly felt hostile and empty. My colleagues, well, they constantly talked behind my back. They called me stuff like a retard, a slow, autistic nerd, which I guess I am, only because I just couldn't fit in with them. Only because, I just couldn't fit in with their general perceived notion of what a new coworker should look like, or should act like. There were times that I overheard them making fun of me for my just general interest in animation. Imagine, in a dubbing studio. I stayed at that place, hoping that it would get better. It didn't get better. It got worse. They kicked me out. And good thing they did, because those 9 months, they were the most sad 9 months of my existence. Yeah. Afterwards, I even got really depressed for a while, and I couldn't really get out of that hole that I was in. But yeah, why am I saying this? Well, you know how we all idolized the Switch 2, how we all wanted it for so long. We imagined it, and we wanted it so much that when it actually came out, and when it actually was in our hands, we just started to feel nothing. You wait, imagine, hype yourself up, finally get the thing, and instead of joy, there is only disappointment you can't fully explain. Nothing is technically wrong, but the magic isn't there. At the end of the day, is the Switch 2 perfect? No. For my taste, it's way too big for a handheld console. The prices of the games are way too steep, the screen is prone to ghosting, and mouse mode does absolutely nothing for me. Mouse mode sounds so cool on paper, but it absolutely doesn't click with me. But you know what? The Switch one wasn't perfect as well. How many games actually use the AR functionality on that one Joy-Con, for example? I can only say about 2 games. One of them is Ring Fit Adventure, and the other game is that strange little, I don't know, eShop title that used the AR camera. The Switch one was just so underpowered. It was underpowered actually when it came out. It used a chip from 2015. It was such an underpowered console that when a 4-year-old title like The Witcher 3 came to the Switch, it felt like magic. It felt like the developers did the impossible, and what they did was just lower the settings, and they just compressed the textures a lot. But yeah, we have what we wanted for so long, and we just take it for granted. At least I hope that this won't talk behind our backs, and that it will respect us for the people that we are. I really hope that in the future we don't get ads in paid games that we own. That would be the cherry on top of the dystopian future that we're headed towards. That's exactly when I will start to feel like that companies have lost all respect for the consumer. But hey, you know, maybe Nintendo will fix some of these stuff. Maybe they'll make a... Oh, hello! I can see myself! Well, yeah, maybe Nintendo can make like a smaller version of this. Maybe even they will do some niche small revisions. They could even adjust the prices. They could try to do some more playful experiments. Or maybe the answer to this problem isn't this device at all, it just isn't the hardware. Maybe it's just accepting that the feeling we chase after isn't really in this device. It really isn't in the Switch one as well. It was about the moment. We cannot rewind time and we cannot re-experience the Switch one again. But that's fine. What we have here is fine enough. I have hope for this. We are still in year 1 of the Switch 2. The Switch 1's best year was its 2nd and its 3rd year. Think about that. But getting what you want and feeling sad afterwards is an odd kind of sadness. It at least tells you that the thing you wanted wasn't the whole story. And once you understand that, you can start looking for the joy that you were craving in different places. You start finding joy in different places. それでは、またね。バイバイ。